Welcome to Kadem, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The passing of Gene Hackman, the acting legend, and his wife, Betsy Arakawa.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and it's a story that's full of questions that are still unanswered.
Right.
So we're going to try to unpack what we know so far, but we also want to be mindful, of the sensitive nature of this.
Of course, yeah. It's definitely a somber topic, and we're going to approach it with sensitivity. I think what makes this case so interesting is that it involves Gene Hackman, who had this big on-screen persona, but off-screen, he was really private.
Yeah, you always felt like he was a bit of a recluse, especially after he retired from acting.
Right.
And that makes this sudden news even more shocking. So for those who may not know, Gene Hackman is a true icon in cinema.
Oh, yeah.
He gave us amazing performances in movies like The French Connection, Unforgiven,
Classics.
even Superman,
Right?
where he was Lex Luthor, the villain. But Betsy Arakawa, his wife, was also accomplished.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, she was a really talented classical pianist and a businesswoman, and together they had this life together, far from the craziness of Hollywood.
And it's actually a very sweet story how they met. They met in a gym
Oh, really?
in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where they settled down. Imagine that.
It's not the most likely place to meet,
Yeah, a Hollywood legend and a classical pianist meeting at the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does show, I guess, that they really wanted a normal life away from the spotlight.
Exactly.
So let's get into what we know about what happened. On February 26th, 2025, deputies in Santa Fe got a call to go to the Hackman residence in Santa Fe Summit, which is a gated community.
Right.
It was for a welfare check. And tragically, they found both Gene and Betsy and their dog deceased.
And the dog being there, too, really makes you wonder what could have happened. Like, was there something in the environment that could have been a factor?
It's a good point. I mean, it adds this whole other layer to this already sad situation. And as you said before, there's still a lot we don't know. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office said they didn't see any signs of foul play right away,
Right.
but they're still looking into the exact cause of death.
It's really important to be careful about what we assume right now. It's natural to speculate, especially with someone famous like Gene Hackman, but we really have to wait for the official word from the forensic experts.
I agree. We don't want to be spreading misinformation or rumors.
Oh.
So given this situation, and especially because their dog was also found deceased, what are some of the first theories the investigators might be considering?
Well, one that's been going around is carbon monoxide poisoning. It was February in Santa Fe. Average highs around 7 degrees Celsius, lows around -7.
Wow.
So it makes sense that they would have been using their heating system. And if that malfunctioned, it could release carbon monoxide, which is really dangerous because you can't see it or smell it.
Yeah, that's really scary. For those listening who might not know much about carbon monoxide, could you break down how it affects the body and why it's so dangerous?
Sure. Carbon monoxide is often called a silent killer because you really can't detect it without special equipment. When you breathe it in, it attaches to the hemoglobin in your blood, and that's what carries oxygen throughout your body. So basically, it stops your cells from getting the oxygen they need.
Oh, wow. So it's like suffocating, but from the inside.
Yeah, kind of. And the symptoms can be really subtle at first, like headaches, dizziness, weakness, feeling confused. That's why it's so tricky. People often don't realize they're being poisoned until it's too late. If you're exposed for a long time, it can make you lose consciousness, then go into a coma and even cause death.
Yeah.
And finding the dog deceased, too, kind of points to carbon monoxide, doesn't it? I mean, animals are just as vulnerable to it as we are.
Yeah, it's definitely a reminder to make sure you've got working carbon monoxide detectors in your home.
Yeah.
But even though it seems likely, we still got to remember, we're just speculating right now.
Right.
So are there any other possibilities the investigators might be looking into?
Oh, for sure. It's super important to be thorough. So even though the fact that the couple and their pet passed away together seems to suggest an environmental cause like carbon monoxide poisoning, investigators are going to look at everything. Checking medical histories, any potential hazards in the home, and of course, running toxicology tests.
It really shows how seriously they take these investigations. They don't just jump to conclusions. They explore all angles.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for us, as people who see this information, to just be patient and let the investigators do their job. It's key to stick with verified info from reliable sources, especially these days when there's so much speculation and instant opinions online.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in all the noise on social media and stuff. And that's why shows like this are so important. To give people a well-researched perspective based on facts
Exactly. We want to cut through the noise and offer some clarity. Now, shifting gears a bit, it's been really touching to see the outpouring of grief and all the tributes since the news broke about Gene and Betsy's passing.
It really shows you how much of an impact he had, not just on Hollywood, but on people's lives. George Takei, who you know from Star Trek, tweeted, "We have lost one of the true giants of the screen." And film journalist Karen Krasanovich called Hackman an extraordinary actor who honed his craft his entire life. She was pointing out how careful he was about choosing his roles.
Yeah, that's what made him so interesting. He wasn't just taking any role that came his way. He really thought about it and chose projects that meant something to him.
He definitely seemed to care more about artistic integrity than just making money. It's not something you see too often in an industry that's so focused on the bottom line.
No, you don't. And you can see that in the variety of his films. He wasn't scared to take risks and play characters that challenged him and the audience. Think about his performance as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, a conflicted character. He won an Oscar for that role, and it's really a masterclass in acting, showing how to play a flawed but still compelling character.
It's one of those performances that sticks with you. The intensity, the rawness, unforgettable.
And then there's his portrayal of Little Bill Daggett, the tough sheriff in Unforgiven, another Oscar-worthy performance. He gave that character so much depth. It wasn't just a typical bad guy. You could understand why he did what he did, even if you didn't agree with it.
Yeah, that's the mark of a truly great actor, making you empathize with even the most unlikable characters. But Hackman wasn't just a dramatic actor, he was also hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. His performance as the blind hermit in Young Frankenstein is pure comedic gold. Put the candle back. Classic. I laugh every time I see it.
His comedic timing was perfect. And we can't forget about him as Lex Luthor in Superman.
Yeah.
He brought a sly humor and a genuine menace to that role.
His range was incredible. He could do intense drama, make you laugh your head off, and be a truly scary villain. And he always brought a depth and realness to his roles.
Yeah, it's a bummer he retired from acting in 2004. It makes you wonder what other amazing performances he could have given us.
Yeah, I think his decision to step away from the spotlight says a lot about him, though. He wasn't driven by ego or needing constant praise. He was happy to leave on his own terms while he was still at the top of his game.
It's a good lesson for all of us, really. Knowing when to step back and focus on what's truly important. But thankfully, his legacy lives on in his films.
Absolutely. And it's a multifaceted legacy. It's not just about his talent. It's also about his integrity, his devotion to his craft, and his commitment to being authentic.
And for those of you tuning in to the Get Him YouTube channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We've got more deep dives coming your way. So let's talk about Betsy Arakawa. Now, she may not have been as famous as her husband, but she had her own accomplishments and her own unique story.
Right. It's important to remember that often behind a great man, there's an equally great woman. And in this case, Betsy was amazing in her own right. She was a super talented classical pianist, and she was also involved in a lot of charity work in their community.
It seems like their love for a life outside of the Hollywood spotlight really strengthened their bond. And I read that they were really active in supporting the arts in Santa Fe.
Yeah, they were known for being generous and wanting to encourage creativity in their community. And even though her music career might not have been as globally recognized as Hackman's acting, she definitely touched a lot of lives with her music and philanthropy.
Yeah, it shows that you can have an impact in many different ways. And while we're sad about their passing, it's also a time to remember and appreciate the fullness of their lives, both as individuals and as a couple.
I couldn't agree more. It really speaks to how powerful human connection is and the impact we can have on the world, even if we're not famous or wealthy.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to say again that the investigation into their passing is still going on. We'll keep you updated as we learn more.
In the meantime, I think a great way to honor their memory is to revisit their work. Watch Hackman's movies, listen to Arakawa's music, and reflect on the impact they had.
That's a really nice thought. A way to keep their legacy going and to continue to be inspired by their creativity and their commitment to living a meaningful life.
And for those who haven't seen much of Gene Hackman's work, I really recommend checking out his films. It's like taking a trip through film history and seeing the power of storytelling and the lasting legacy of a true artist.
Well said. And to everyone watching on the Get Him YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions like this. Until next time, let's remember Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, not for the mystery surrounding their passing, but for their amazing lives and the legacy they leave behind.